Hey kiddos, lesson 26 of Wonderstruck today. You can tell I'm recording these out of order because I have on the same clothes from two previous ones. But like Miss Lowing and the others that are going to record, you'll see that they have on different clothes. We're going to go to the school and do all this. But today in lesson 26, it's the history of deaf culture and sign language. Your assignment after this is over, you'll see on the stuff that we uploaded on Google Classroom that there's a page to teach you the hand spellings of sign language. So we want you to learn your name in sign language, A-L-I-S-O-N, and we'd like you to do your age. And you can research and get on YouTube and learn other stuff if you want to. The kids in Miss Shirley, Miss Willis's class know that this means common sense. We do sign language quite often in there. But this is your lesson 26. Here we go. The American Sign Language, or ASL, is one of the most widely used sign languages in the world. There are an estimated 200 to 300,000 signers of ASL in the United States and Canada, and many more who have learned it as a second language. ASL is not universal, meaning that it is not understood by signers of other sign languages around the world. No one knows how many different sign languages there are. A recent survey of all documented human languages lists 130 sign languages, which include Brazilian Sign Language, Japanese Sign Language, Portuguese Sign Language, French-Canadian Sign Language, among others. Where spoken languages use the voice and movement of the mouth to communicate, signers use their hands and their face and bodies to convey precise meanings. And we have definitely learned this with Rose and Ben in Wonderstruck, that you have your verbal and your nonverbal communication. One handshake is like one consonant. The English words bat, rat, cat all differ only with the first consonant. Likewise, the signs for black and summer are almost identical except for a different hand shape. In Wonderstruck, Ben learns to fingerspell English words. Fingerspelling is not the same as signing, but it is a useful way to include English words. In the same way that speakers of English borrow Spanish or French words for names and places, signers use fingerspelling when they want to represent an English word, such as someone's name or to identify a place. Signers might say, "My name is," and then they fingerspell their name letter by letter. ASL traces its history to 1814 when the first school for deaf children was founded in Hartford, Connecticut. ASL was created partly from French Sign Language, which is even older, having its origins in Paris sometime around 1790. This means that ASL is likely about 300 or more years old, but fingerspelling is even older. There are charts showing fingerspelled hand shapes in books published as early as 1620. These books describe how Spanish monks used fingerspelling to teach their deaf students to read and write. Every sign language exists in a community of signers with a long history. ASL's history parallels that of schools for deaf children in the United States and Canada. Today, deaf children attend different types of schools, not only special schools for deaf children, but public schools as well, along with hearing children. Maybe you have seen deaf students in your school with a sign language interpreter. Today's ASL is taught in high schools, in colleges, and universities. An ASL class may even be available in your school. A couple of years ago, Miss Shirley had a student who had an interpreter, and that's where Miss Shirley's learned most of her sign language. So it was really neat to watch me teach and then her interpreter, sign it for, especially when we did the Mayans, Incans, and Aztecs. That was so much fun. Deaf communities are made up of deaf people and ASL signers who may be hearing, and they can sometimes be very large and active communities. In some places, the deaf community has a long history of social and cultural activity, including clubs, sports, theater, and school, and services to support the needs of deaf people. Indeed, there may be a whole other world of deaf people for you to discover in your own community. You can see deaf actors on television, on the web, and especially on YouTube, where deaf people post videos in ASL. You can find old stories reflecting the history of deaf people and their culture on DVDs or on the web. In many of the same places, you can find modern adaptations of ASL in the form of poetry, narratives, and creative use of signing. Like all human languages, ASL is alive and always changing to meet the needs of communicating in the modern world. Whether language is in speech or sign, human beings seem to have a powerful ability to find ways to communicate and to identify closely with their language. Think about how valuable your language is to you. This is how deaf people feel about ASL. So now, if you've ever come in contact with a deaf person, then you probably know some sign language, but your assignment and your job is to go look at Google Classroom, where we have uploaded your ELA stuff, and practice spelling your name in sign language and your age. And if you want to go further, you are more than welcome to research on the internet and just to find out some information, because we know with Ben and Rose, Ben now being deaf in both ears is having to learn a new way of communication. Because remember, the theme across this unit is communication, and this is just another form of that verbal and nonverbal communication. See you next time.